You mentioned Judaism and also some Islam.
Islam, yes.
So rebirth, that means you see the future, next life, not previous life.
Maybe
This
the future
real
life.
created by God.
Right.
So no previous life.
I think that's true. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then, of course, you see, after death, you see, we simply waiting final judgment in the coffin. At least, you see, at least perhaps I think a few centuries rest. So there's some kind of a concept, at least future life. At the time of death is completely sort of stopped, not that way. I think that's many, I think, because of the believer. Oh, sorry. I discussed this. I inquired, out of my own curiosity, the Shintoism, the Japanese Shintoism, and also I think Chinese. They very much sort of also a strong tradition to worship their ancestors' soul or something. So they consider that is something natural. After death, there's some kind of things still remain. And then according to Shinto, then after death, we, because of the release all these pains and the suffering. So whether you should make attempt or not, after death, we reach some kind of nirvana. So that's very easy, very good. Without any effort, it's simply wait to death. And then we go to that kind of state. As your own, also your explanation on the basis of your own sort of experience, quite sort of amazing. Now I think overall, I always consider the scientific research work is something quite a reliable sort of method. At the same time, we must, because of the accept certain phenomena which beyond our capacity through investigation. Therefore, it's a Buddhist concept, 통합문주, 중세고주, 신도고주.
So, because of this, in Buddhist philosophy,
그러다. 그래서 커미션 다실래요, 알았어. 그래서 가시면.
because of this, in Buddhist philosophy, we find distinctions made within the category of phenomena as phenomena which belong to Buddhist thought.
Buddhist thought.
Yeah. For example, we speak of evident phenomena which lend themselves to experience and observation. Then you have the hidden phenomena which can be inferred on the basis of observed phenomena. And then there's the third category of phenomena referred to as extremely hidden.
So science, I think mainly, you see, their research mainly on the first level,
category.
First category. Then, on the basis of their finding, then some sort of the chabachaji.
So then, of course, based on observation, they can also draw inferences. So then it touches upon the second category of phenomena as well.
The third level, only through someone who actually experience. Now, for example, his own sort of experience, for him is something reality, real. But those people, you see, who never sort of experienced that, it is still, oh, his mind a little bit sort of different. It's possible like that. So that's the that there were kora nyamsu nyongya kansa korang ta nga delia iji gendra ma do medwa.
So when we touch upon the third category of phenomena, which is really extremely hidden and obscure, then for the time being, for the other people, there is no real access, direct or inferential. So the only method that is left is to really rely on the testimony of the first person experience of the person himself or herself.
And for that also, you see, we must investigate. Through investigation, we must get sure that person is truly reliable, and his experience is something, not just illusion of these things. Now, through then thorough investigation, that person is reliable, never telling a lie, and in this particular case, you see, no reason to tell lie. Therefore, you see,
So then one can take the testimony to be credible.
So this point is, chenrikwe zani ni mutu yaki desenshik. That the manyever mato member the yachachi.
So the point I'm trying to make is that with respect to science and its scope for knowledge and discovering knowledge, we need to make a distinction about the fact that there might be certain types of phenomena which science, it's beyond the scope of scientific inquiry. Therefore, we should not confuse between something that the science hasn't found or proven and something that science has proven to be not to be the case, the opposite. So these are two different things.
Among the scientists, as far as I notice, the later part of 20th century, there the knowledge or field they carry of research about the brain, quite sort of the more deeper level. This is still more mysterious things. And then also the medical science, medical science, also now they realize mental state is very, very important factor for our physical health. So therefore, the scientists now brought more attention about what's emotion, how to deal with this emotion. Through only surgery or through drug? No. Whether there's another way to deal with this sort of the problem, emotional problem, these things, problem or certain emotions like that. So last about 30 years, I had sort of serious sort of dialogue or discussion with scientists. Result, now, last 30 years, among the scientists, I think interest about information about emotion, which mentioned in now so far mainly Buddhist literature, their interest very much sort of increased. And actually, some scientists, last I think a few years, they actually carry some experiment through training. They found concrete sort of the result. So I think you mentioned, I think that maybe is relevant here. My friend, one scientist, he publicly sort of mentioned he's not Buddhist, but he believes rebirth. So the interest You see, so therefore, you see, the last 30 years, we Buddhists, although in literature mentioned about particles, but see, in this field, it is extremely useful to learn from scientific sort of findings. Extremely sort of helpful, very helpful. So now, sort of combination, the traditional, or let's say traditional sort of knowledge about our mind, emotion, and that I usually call science of mind, not considered as a part of Buddhism. Buddhism is for individual matter. Now, knowledge or science of mind is universal. So then also in some extent, Buddhist concept, the gap the reality and appearances. Many are mistake, you see, develop because of we very much based on appearances without knowing the reality. So the gap, reality and appearances always source of problem. So therefore, it is in order to develop realistic approach, we must know the reality. So firstly, we must accept there is gap. I think every field. So such things, I think truth, concept of truth, very relevant now here. So these, again, Buddhist certain concept, and then momentarily changing, impermanent. That also, you see, the sources of these concepts is from Buddhist literature, but not necessarily considered these topics are Buddhist sort of practice. So last a few years, I suggested, now out of 300 volumes, Genjur and Tenjur, so about 300 volumes. Usually, you see, we Tibetan also, you see, we consider these are something sacred sort of text and worship. Never feel, of course, the common people never feel these are text for study. That's now must change. I always telling, these 300 volumes is actually text, not just as an object for worship. Just if you touch our head. So that's, I think, clear sign of backwardness, really. So the 300 volumes, Genjur about 100 volume, and Tenjur, that means commentary about Buddha's teaching, wrote by Nagarjuna and so on. These are great scholars. These are about 200 volumes. So the content, these 300 volumes, we can divide 3 parts. One part, science, about matters, about minds, emotions, these things. It's simply, when this text is mentioned about mind or emotions, no mention good emotion or bad emotion, simply what's the reality it mentioned. So it is science. The second category, on the basis of their on the basis of the reality, then is a certain sort of concept. That means the
the second part is really based upon the discoveries of the first part, which is the kind of the equivalence of science, then kind of concepts which are in some sense kind of developed on the basis of that understanding of reality.
That's Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist concept. And certainly, like Four Noble Truths, then these then related with Buddhist religion, about concept of nirvana or salvation, these things. That's more close to Buddhist religion, but simply, you see, the impermanence and these two truths. I think we can consider these are something, kasota, a philosophical view or concept about reality, like that. So why, you see, I try to make distinctions in these three categories. The Buddhism, religion part, is only for Buddhists. The other two, something very useful for our kasota, knowledge. Therefore, that should consider as a academic subject. Clear. So last now, I think 2 years to 3 years, we already now categorize these three parts. Now, firstly, we made compile in Tibetan, then in translation in English, then Chinese, then Hindi, like that. No Spanish. So later, like you have some sort of responsibility to translate into Spanish. So now another sort of the reason why is I sort of thinking seriously these things is ultimate source of problem. Individual sort of unhappy, sort of disturbed mind, and problem within the family, problem within the society, and ultimately problem among humanity, global level. Ultimately, these problems start from here. No one deliberately tried to create a problem, but ignorance. We become slave of destructive emotion. Usually, we consider this destructive emotion is part of our mind. It is quite natural. Due to lack of knowledge, realize some emotions are destructive. And there is, among the sort of emotion, there's always two categories. One emotion, like anger, and the sort of counter, opposite force, always there. That's loving kindness. So once we realize, once we know within the emotion, contradictory emotions, then in order to reduce destructive emotions such as anger, try to find the opposite sort of emotion, then pay more attention about that, the strength, gain strength about this positive emotion, positive such as loving kindness, then automatically the anger, hatred, the intensity reduce. So whether we can eliminate these negative emotions, that is something related with religions. But this is not related with Kasoda, not relevant in general public. But general public, you see, we can, through training our mind, we can reduce these emotions which disturb our life. So in order to do that, we should, we must have some knowledge about what I usually call map of emotion, map of mind. Then, you see, better sort of knowledge, the system of this emotion. Then much easier to deal with this destructive emotion. So we are trying, you see, to produce
Textbooks.
or textbook about these things as an academic subject, and eventually can be used in secular education field from kindergarten up to university level. Here is some modern scientist like Paul Ekman. You see, his own sort of the research. You see, he identified, I think, 14 or 16 different emotion.
Different classes of emotions.
So we can add these things. Then some other sources, if something useful, we can add like that. So that we are doing. So perhaps I think this this institution, I think can carry some research work, and also I think to because of the part of our kuduchisa.
Participate in this dialogue process.
And Cardo. What else? So now about mind, I think you briefly mentioned. Firstly, any phenomena which sort of obvious changing there, or there must be a nature of changing momentarily. Some change within a year, that change must take place every month. Change within month must take place every day. The change within day must, the momentarily must changing, so say, within hours or minutes or second. So we sort of Buddhist logician is to conclude any phenomena which depend on causes must be momentarily changing. Then another thing, this impermanence. Now another thing, phenomena sometimes happen, sometimes disappear. That means even on the 지대거부 되겐기 가사 효측 루드에 김정아 시기와 채도 왔어. 수상 이 집어보 요래서. 정도 맞죠. 체제리 자산가 거부 요래서. 다디 견전 등의 차네 견제도 거 요인데 가서 그게 다도 당연시人民 人가와 레샤스.人가와 인도산에 코 주야디 견시로 뛰고도 왔어.
His Holiness is referring to the classical debates between the theists of the Indian tradition on the one side and non-theists such as the Buddhist tradition on the other, on the question of the understanding the origination of the universe and phenomena. So one of the main premises that is put forward by the theist side is that the world is finite, therefore there must be a creator. And the Buddhist argument is that the world comes into being at a time and then disappears out of existence. So it's never eternal, and because of that, it indicates being subject to condition. There must be a cause or a condition.
Now among the phenomena, the same nature momentarily changing. One, matters. One, consciousness. Mental consciousness. Of course, I usually use the mentioning, of course, maybe a little bit silly. I think one deeper, I think the Ningji DSA the level the could the Mondrosh to Chico Congress and Namraki Chevacudule, the Coluti Kujugaris. Ningji Shusum Kibule, such Dagaran Kujugas to us.
The neuroscientists tell us that when someone experiences compassion, the motor regions of the brain also becomes active. But these motor regions also become active when you have strong emotions like anger as well.
When I heard that, so I just expressed, oh, then that part of our brain is so foolish. Mental level, big difference. Compassion is really full of strength, confidence. You see, think more concerned about their other sort of well-being. So unless you have some kind of self-confidence and willpower, you cannot think that way. Then anger, sadness is simply centered in the self-centered attitude. So there, usually anger comes when you feel some threat. That means you feel weak. So anger comes as indifferent. So the mental level, big differences. Compassion, full of strength. Anger, weak. But the brain didn't make a distinction. One. Then, a little bit so silly, I usually telling people or expressing. When we get some very, very sort of sad sort of experience, tear come, isn't it? When we are overjoyous, also sometimes tear come. And laughing, also is tear come. If you see our nerve system is quite clever, and then they cause emotional level too much sort of joyfulness, then tear must come right eye. Sadness, then tear come from here. Then that shows us some sort of ability to make distinction. So the physical reaction is a certain sort of emotion. It seems to be very rough, very rough. So the explanation or find out the nature of consciousness based on neuron or brain, that the 차어지기 다 가서 그래 추십체를 거둘라 라까지가 자고 좀 가고 싶어요.
So what this suggests is that trying to really kind of formulate a comprehensive explanation of the nature of consciousness, which is a very subtle phenomena by definition.
Very sophisticated.
On the basis of a material basis like brain, on the basis of neurons, which is much grosser phenomena, that there is a very it's problematic.
There are also many years ago, you see one occasion to some sort of our meeting, the human sort of behavior or human mind, in order to know, you see, these things, test animal. I think big differences, even brain level, big differences. So very difficult, you see, try to understand about human mental sort of activities on the studying on the animal brain. I think very difficult. So now, and then sort of another sort of level. Those momentarily changing must be cause. Cause, two kinds. One, substantial cause. One, because of cooperative cause. Now, for example, the eye consciousness, the cooperative cause, eye organs on these, and also I think including some the brain activities. So, but the substantial cause, eye consciousness, such as because of the cognitive usage.
So it's the quality of awareness itself, yeah, which gives rise to this cognitive capacity.
That must be is previous sort of continuation. Like you see, because of the because of that.
Material things like. For example, just in the case of creating a clay pot, the substantial cause, the material cause of that clay pot is the clay from which it's made, the stuff from which it is made.
The cooperative cause, some instrument, some human effort, all these things
involved.
But substantial cause must be a cause which same nature, so that
so the substantial cause refers to the cause that actually turns into the effect, which is the stuff that is the effect is made from.
So consciousness, it is the substantial cause must be same nature consciousness. So at the time of sort of conception, the consciousness must be must come from previous consciousness. Of course, then you see obviously different body, different bases, more subtle way. And then consciousness also, you see the very grosser level, like eye consciousness, very grosser level. Awakened state, consciousness, very sort of very grosser. And then dream state, another level, deeper level. Then deep sleep, another level. As you mentioned, coma survey, fainted, coma, another deeper level. Then deepest at the time of death. So now last, I think 5 decades, we notice in India at least, I think 30 cases, as we know, after death. Clinically, death. Heart beating stop, blood circulation, brain stop. So brain dead. So clinically dead. But body remain fresh. Next, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4, 5 weeks, it happened. So there must be cause. We cannot say some blessing, due to blessing, these things happen. No. This is nature. So must be some explanation. So that we now, you see, we believe the innermost subtle consciousness still within the body. All grosser level of consciousness stop, but very subtle consciousness still there. So some people, even that state, come back, then under the tendency. The innermost subtle
So those who remain in that state, even within that stage, there might be different degrees of subtlety. Which we would call clear light state.
So, forget now. So there are many different levels of consciousness or mind. So now here, I want to share with you, through training, some my friend, I think last 30, 40 years of training. So they can sort of concentrate, they can state certain deeper level of consciousness, 3 hours, 4 hours. Some cases, even breathing, because of that, weaken.
Become very faint.
Or sometimes stop. So these are sort of actually
these are actual experiences of people. Yeah.
So unless we accept consciousness or continuation of consciousness, you see many mysterious things we cannot sort of explain. So 2 phenomena, external phenomena and internal phenomena, that's consciousness. Consciousness, it's like matter is a grosser level, subtle level, very subtle level. Similarly, consciousness also grosser level, more subtle, very, very subtle level. Or then recently I also used to ask one, and previously also I asked, the pame kuja kyunmeba ni dubayi na ningsan che kyabgurbe sto kyabgursto.
I ask scientists that, for example, if the egg becomes fertilized, does that necessarily lead to a full birth? And I was told that's not the case.
Then, what is the cause? The only material, alone material, then blood and the semen without sort of any sort of damage or and then meat must take place, the birth. That's not necessary, not 100%. So then, third factor must be there. What is that now? So we call the being who take birth here. So now that what was that being? Now you both mentioned you mentioned soul. Right? Buddhists do not accept soul. Self merely designated on the continuation of mind, consciousness. Besides consciousness, no independent soul, no independent self. So, except only Buddhism do not accept, you see, certain self or soul, something
something that is independent of the physical. Something that is independent of the physical and the mental properties of the being.
All traditions accept that, particularly Hindu, because you see, they accept the rebirth from previous life to this life, from this life, next life. So body and consciousness which related with this body cease. So there must be something. That's Atma, soul, permanent soul. But Buddhists say no. Simply designated on the combination of subtle body, subtle mind. So as like as mind, body also, grosser level of body, subtle level, very, very subtle level. Very, very subtle level, the body is simply energy. Energy, the subtle mind, always together. Like that?
Beings remain, so that may your Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, abide to dispel the misery of the world.
Thank you. So usually, these days, I sort of expressing all the
Get as close as possible.
monasteries or Buddhist monastery in Ladakh and all these area should try to become learning center. So eventually, people heard monastery should get the sort of feeling, oh, this is a learning center. Like Nalanda. When we heard Nalanda, immediately we feel that's academic center. Not carrying puja day and night and with some kind of big bowl.
Big bowl, like a
And,
big drinking bowl.
and the Tibetan tea, or I think Indian tea, and get some money like that. That I think should change. So all these, actually, as I mentioned earlier, the 300 volumes, these are text. So these monasteries should be learning center where these texts teach. So now here you already start using this material, but actually, because of Medjugorje College. The Duji Medjugorje. The Garden Tower. Kaina. Oh, I see. Oh, some mysterious things now here. Oh, this way. Finished. I think like this. Some taller one. Come here.